It's a tale of two campaigns. We have a Biden crime family update, Trump more popular than Obama, and Ted Cruz exposes the Twitterpocracy. This is Steve Elliott with today's VIP briefing. Just a few days to the election, and it's a very, very important time in American history. Right now, we're living it, so let's get right to today's briefing. We could certainly call this campaign, I think historians will look back on this, reflect on this, as a tale of two campaigns. On one hand, we have a consummate entertainer, campaigner, engager in Donald Trump, who has seen hundreds of thousands of people in person during just since Labor Day. And on the other hand, we have Joe Biden, who has seen barely anyone in person since Labor Day, when most pundits will say the real election starts. It's been a tale of two entirely different campaigns. One candidate is using more traditional retail politics measures to reach directly to voters in key swing states. The other candidate is using the presupposition of the COVID health crisis to stay in his basement, calling a lid on entire days. Just within the last 2 weeks of the campaign, he will have called a lid on more days than Joe Biden than he has campaigned in the final 2 weeks of a presidential election. It's never been heard of before. Investing more time, using his financial advantage to flood the airwaves with media and use his total control over the media. Two campaigns. James Woods put a side-by-side comparison of two videos of President Trump landing in Marine One to throngs of supporters who were entirely engaging and patriotic, as compared to Joe Biden appearing before his circles, a dozen or so circles of people there to hear him speak. We're going to see this today, head to head. Both candidates are in Tampa today, so the media will have an opportunity to compare and contrast. Of course, they won't, and they will probably only criticize Trump for having events that could possibly put people at risk for COVID-19. Gateway Pundit has done a running tab of the number of people who've watched these in person, these candidates. Since Labor Day, Gateway Pundit says, President Trump has entertained more than 750,000 supporters, while Biden has entertained in person 832 people. 832 people. In other words, one Trump rally is in general more than 10 times the amount of people that Biden has seen since Labor Day in person. Yet the polls are showing that he is leading, but I'm not sure the polls are exactly right. Take a look at the latest Rasmussen report. If the presidential election was held today, who would you vote for? National Daily, black likely voting percentage for Trump is now up to 31%. I can't emphasize what a shock this is. 31%. National survey. President Trump received 8% of the black vote in 2016. If he even doubles that to 16%, it would be a tectonic shift in American politics after the black vote being held captive by the Democratic Party for 100 years. 31% would totally blow up the entire American electoral, our thinking of American politics. If it reached 20%, it would be a tectonic shift. 15%. We're seeing 20 and 30% in some key swing states. 31% is absolutely enormous. And President Trump is still more popular than President Obama was at the same stage in his re-election campaign. On October 26, Trump's approval was 52% and Obama's was 48%. So the media creating this picture that Trump is the most hated president in the history of America is simply lying. They only have to go back to 2012 to see that Obama was more disliked at the same time in his reelection as President Trump. And then, of course, we have the news yesterday. It's official. Trump crushes record for largest GDP increase in U.S. history. Third quarter GDP up 33.1%. The V-shaped recovery is actually happening, despite what the liberal governors have done in New York and California and Illinois, Michigan, North Carolina, these states which have done everything they can do to stop the economies from opening up. all in an effort to keep that 33% number down. Imagine if these Democrat socialist states who have kept their cities and states shut down just to hurt Trump. Imagine if they had opened like the states in the South, what those numbers would be. It could be 40%. We're seeing great economic numbers coming out, a great recovery is happening under President Trump. But of course, you won't hear about that, just like you won't hear about Tony Bobulinski. Now, I hope you watched Tucker Carlson's hour-long interview 2 nights ago with Tony Bobulinski, and last night his updates. It's actually quite compelling. If you haven't seen it, find a way to see it. We've got some excerpts, video excerpts in your Grassfire Daily News Digest today to give you a taste of it. The news is clear. It's convincing. It's undeniable. Tony Bobulinski, from his computer and his information, is confirming exactly what was on Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, of course, Joe Biden and the liberal media are not answering Joe Biden's not answering any questions, and they're simply calling this a Russian hoax and a Russian conspiracy. But fortunately, Joe Biden actually confirmed that it was Hunter's laptop. Skip down in this quote. The American people are struggling right now. Whatever is on Hunter's laptop is not important. These are old stories that have nothing to do with the healing of this country. So here we have Jill Biden. Although Joe Biden won't confirm it, Jill Biden confirms that it's Hunter's laptop. This is one of the biggest political scandals that we've ever had. And it is certainly the largest political media cover-up, social media, liberal media cover-up, whitewashing of this entire, I've been using the term gaslighting. They're gaslighting this entirely. They are making it as if that laptop, except for what Jill Biden just said, that laptop doesn't even exist. They're not held accountable at all by the media, at all. So it makes this election quite challenging. And of course, the social media elites are not helping. In fact, they are the ones who are leading the way in whitewashing it, giving Joe Biden an excuse to say, well, Twitter is blocking the New York Post story. Well, it must not be true. It's absolutely ridiculous circular logic. And actually, Ted Cruz, if you didn't see any excerpts from that, we've got a couple great excerpts from when Dorsey and others were called virtually before the Senate committee yesterday. Ted Cruz asked Dorsey, the head of Twitter, does Twitter have the ability to influence elections? Dorsey says no. You've got to watch the video. It's priceless. In fact, Cruz, a lawyer, totally verbally entrapped him, because he asked him again, are you sure you can influence elections? Are you sure? And Dorsey doubled down, tripled down. And then Cruz said, if you don't think you have the power to influence elections, why do you block anything? It was great. Dorsey, he didn't really have anything to say after that. It's actually a good video. Will anything come out of it now, other than hopefully a few more Americans will have heard the truth of what's happening, of the censoring, of the lies and the deceptions that's going on in our country at an unprecedented scale, just like it's happening over the coronavirus crisis, which is really a case-demic. It's a pandemic of cases. I've showed you this graph. If you're watching in the audio, I'm showing a graph that shows the ICU admissions very high in April and almost down to zero, very low measures now. Deaths per day, same thing, a huge peak in April and at a very low level since the end of July. But then there's that line of cases per day, and the cases per day are increasing. But we need to be careful. This is Sweden's numbers. Now you say, what about America's numbers? Here's America's numbers, the same thing. We see that the average number of actual positive tests per 250,000 tests is almost flat. In other words, the more tests we have, the more cases we have. Trump said that. It's exactly true. As our tests have increased, the cases have increased, and we really shouldn't even use the term cases at all. We should say positive test results, of which about 1.5% of them are probably false positives. But positive test results is not, from a diagnostic sense, a case. You are diagnosed as having a disease or a condition by symptoms and testing. Testing should only really be used to confirm symptoms. In other words, if I have no symptoms, there should be no reason to test me. But unfortunately, lots of asymptomatic people are being tested, and they're being called as cases for COVID-19 when they're really not cases at all. This is a case-demic. Right now, if you turn on CNN, you're going to hear, this is the highest, most cases in American history right now, just before the election. This is all a political play. We have lots of tests happening, resulting in positive tests, very low hospitalization numbers, very low death numbers. In fact, on college campuses, one gentleman has tracked 88 major college campuses, 100,000 positive test cases, which are really positive tests, and 14 hospitalizations out of that. And one perhaps death, but likely not really a death from COVID. So probably 0 deaths, but 14 hospitalizations at colleges among 100,000 tests, which undoubtedly is less than the number of people going to the hospital for flu in a normal season on college campuses. Well, this is a critical time, and we certainly need your help at Grassfire. We just posted our top 10 reasons Trump can and will win. I hope you go to grassfire.com and read that story. I think it's great. It puts into context this entire election and some of the key data that, of course, liberal media is missing. Read that, share it on Facebook, share it by email with your friends. We want to reach as many million people at least or more in these final days leading up to the election. We certainly could use your help. Thank you so much for our VIPs who are making this possible. If you're not a VIP, please go to grassfire.com/VIP and help us in this final push to the election to reach as many citizens as possible with the truth. This is Steve Elliott with Grassfire.